أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
पनाह मांगता हूँ अल्लाह की शैतान मरदूद से।
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
अल्लाह के नाम से जो रहमान और रहीम है।
मिनश्शैतानिर्रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया'i वल मुरसलीन व खातिबिन नबिय्यीन अम्मा बाद फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाह तआला व तबारक फ़ी किताबिल मुबीन व हुवा अस्दक़ुल क़ाइलीन बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम मा यफ़्तहिल्लाहु लिन्नासि मिन रहमतिन फ़ला मुमसिक लहा व मा युमसिक फ़ला मुरसिल लहू मिन बादिही व हुवा अज़ीज़ुल हकीम। Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this program of Faith Forum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Fatir, ayat number 2 says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept the doors of rahmat, His blessings, and there is nobody can shut it, nobody can hinder it. And the doors that the mankind would like to close, without Allah nothing can be closed, because Allah is the one who has the hikmah, who has the knowledge, who is the master of His creation. In our lives, we always live with hope of His blessings, of His rahmat, His shafqat, His barakat, i.e. that Allah will give us, bestow upon us His great blessings, His great gifts, and has He not done so? If we were to look and examine our daily lives, we will realize from the morning, from the time we wake up till we go to sleep, how much Allah has done for us. Might I ask, what are we doing in return? If Allah hadn't given us or lit the candle of hope, right, then our lives would be in so much despair. To discuss this great topic, we have a great scholar, in many ways philanthropic in his ways of helping simple little communities, whether in outskirts of villages and towns, trying to bring them together with such kindness and love and attention, is nobody else that our friend and our guest here today, our brother Chris Wade. Chris, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Chris is a learned scholar especially in his faith and religion, Christianity, but his knowledge is no less in the realm of Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, Buddhism, and many other faiths. This pursuit of knowledge of other faiths has led him to believe in an open heart and mind to accumulate and accommodate different faiths, different religions, different cultures, and that diversity makes this life of ours, wherever we live, so beautiful. And if we get rid of that and believe in individuality, then we become so lonely. Chris, the ayat that I recited from the Quran, our holy book, it is saying that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who keeps His door of His blessings open, i.e. that we must live with hope in about his great kindness and love and rewards, and not despair. After about 50 years ago or so, in America, considered the land of opportunity, there had been, or has been still, a community of African Americans, those who centuries ago were brought into America in ships as slaves, and even in modern day and time, like 50 years ago, segregation in the American society was such an evil. But there stood a man who, not with arms, not with weapons, but with his words of letting people believe that there is hope, and that comes from God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he gave a beautiful speech, which everybody's on, and should be on everyone's tongue, is the speech labeled and put down as "I have a dream." In religion, if it isn't hope, then would a religion, would a faith, would a Messiah, would a prophet, would an Imam be able to convey Allah's greatness to us if we were not to have what is known as hope in Allah's greatness?
I think that hope is a central virtue of all religious traditions.
MashaAllah.
Because we believe in a God who is good, who only does what is good, and who has promised to do good and to be merciful to humankind, if only they will turn and ask for forgiveness. Therefore, without hope, we would have no religion.
Yes.
We are also told that this life is a preparation. It is a test. It is a training ground for the life hereafter. And so therefore we need to think of hope in terms of the life that is to follow this life, when we can pray that the sufferings of people that cannot be cured in this life may be exalted in the next life. So hope is a fundamental part of any faith tradition.
Hope is the fundamental part of any religion, traditions, and even as we speak today, there are places where the lives of people, they have got despair, they suffer from diseases, illnesses, poverty, hunger. But it is the faith in God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which lights the candle of hope in our minds and heart, that keeps us alive. In this modern day and age, we will come back to Martin Luther King. There are so many other questions I would like to put to my learned guest. If there is hope, and we should understand there is hope, if we believe, and I emphasize, we must believe in His greatness. If we had really the society to believe in that, then there wouldn't be so many mental institutions where, out of despair, out of giving up hope even to desire to live, people take on to drugs. They seek solace and peace which are actually harmful and injurious to them. And the rates of, in this fabulous world and an advanced world, so richer in many ways, there shouldn't be the word called suicide appearing as a form of news every day, especially amongst those who are supposed to have knowledge, who are supposed to be enlightened, who are supposed to be leaders in community. We have lost hope because, is it because we don't believe, we have lost faith in God Almighty, or being religious, being a believer, an outdated culture in the society?
It is partly, I think, a crisis of faith.
Yes.
Because how and why would you have hope if you did not believe in a supreme creator, a supreme lover of humankind and of all creation? So faith is an essential component. Important to remember, I think, that there is a difference between hope and optimism.
Yes.
Optimism is a way of bringing yourself always to think that everything is going to be wonderful. Whereas hope is a much deeper concept, which is saying that even through hard times, always there are better things to come with God's blessing.
MashaAllah.
In the Christian tradition, we group together three virtues: that of faith, that of hope, and that of charity. And by charity here we would mean loving every one of God's creatures, not just your fellow human being without distinction, but the whole of God's creation. Now there's a sense in which these three interplay with each other, because the more active I am in doing works of charity and of love, then the more hope and faith grow within me. The more the strength of my hope, this brings me to do greater acts of charity and to strive more for the well-being of my fellow human being and of other creatures. So that faith, hope and charity always interplay with each other. We're told that because of God's overwhelming love for us, the greatest of these is to acknowledge and to receive that love. But faith and hope go always together with charity.
Faith and hope always go along with charity. If we look at the lives of the prophets that Allah sent to us, who were beacon of love and hope to guide us through the stormy waters in our lives. If we look at the life of, for example, Hazrat Dawood alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him to test, to see does calamity, does diseases, does the misfortunes transform his faith from belief and hope in the mercy and the kindness of Almighty towards giving up the faith that he has and becomes a non-believer. We learn through the life of Dawood alayhi salam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he put him to test, Dawood lost everything he had. The sons he had, the children he had, the cattle he had, even the health he had. He has wounds all over his body. But Dawood has hope in Allah that this suffering is temporary, that Allah is so kind and merciful that this will never be everlasting. With that hope, his faith builds up in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the time comes when he says his prayers, then of forgiveness, and says, enough of this, O Allah, restore my health. And Allah says to the Farishte, the angels, look at Dawood. And if we look at the life of Hazrat Yunus, I have wronged my own self, and you are the great one who will pardon. When Allah saw, even in the belly of the fish, in that darkness, when everybody else would lose hope, Hazrat Yunus, the Prophet, doesn't lose hope. In fact, his belief in Allah gets better. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know, rewarded Yunus with a new coming into this world, stepping into this earth once again. If we look at the lives Allah has given us, our parents, our mother and father, when the children fall ill, and sometimes they've got temperature, illness, disease, anything, it is their hope that makes them nurse the baby, nurse the child towards recovery. If it wasn't for hope, then we would all abandon each other. And it is that test that Allah puts onto us, that I will test you with these calamities. If you believe in me, then have hope. And hope will, that will be the testing time for you. Tell me, in this modern day and age, when we look at huge refugee camps, when we look at ships where immigrants are trying to reach, as we say, greener pastures, they are about to come towards the shores of Australia, and the government say, enough is done. Let them sink, I do not care, but they have no right to come to this land. This land belongs to us. Chris, does this land belong to us? To earth we came from, to earth we go. Does it still belong to us?
One of the great calamities of the modern period is to invest so much attention into the nation state, so that I am a citizen of this country, and the next step is to say, therefore I have more right to be here than you have. This is not a statement based on our great faith traditions, because it is God who made the earth, and human beings who are the stewards or the custodians
yes,
of the things of the earth. I have no more right to this piece of land than you have or anyone else. All human beings in this sense are the stewards of that which God has given them. And if God has given you more, then more are your responsibilities and more are your duties to make sure that that is used according to the guidance of God. But the idea that we should take the life of refugees, that we should deny their basic humanity, that we should refuse them admittance into a country in which we have more than we need so that we become ill, surely these are crimes, these are sins for which we will have to account before God.
Since, as Chris puts it, we will have to account before the Almighty. He made this earth as an example of a paradise. He gave us fruits in different kinds and in abundance. He gave us lands to cultivate and enough for everyone, because in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Quran, and I believe in other religions where I am Razaq, I am the one who will feed you. If He has said so, then He must have enough food for each of us on this earth to share with each other. Yes, our tablecloth is spread and nice food of all varieties there. Then we sit across that dastarkhan, that tablecloth, with a pair of scissors. We cut it and say, this bit is ours. Whatever is in this bit, nobody has a right but me to eat. And even if we don't eat, we will throw it in the garbage bin, but we will build butter mountains We will build wheat mountains. We will hoard products till the prices go up, but we will not shave you because it is mine. Those very hands that tilt the soil to create this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts them to test. One little word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person has a stroke and all his body goes limp. It is He who gives food, it is He who gives us the energy, it is He who gives us the strength. We will take a little break, and after the break we will come back to pursue this topic with our great brother here, Chris. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to this program. We were just talking a couple of minutes ago about hope and our faith. If we look up that our great prophets, our imams fulfilled that role of fulfilling the dreams and hopes of people. Those who were ill, they looked after them. Those who were hungry, they helped to feed them. Those who did not have clothes, they clothed them. And if we look at even this in modern day and age, there are people who are willing to sacrifice their time and energy to fulfill that role. In this country, England where we live, there are very many charitable organizations who do such work. Here we have not only the Red Cross, we have the Red Crescent. We have got various other charities who do that work. It is their work that brings hope to the people in various parts of the world. Hope that their thirst will be quenched. Hope that their hunger will be gone and they will be fed. Hope that one day they will have a roof over their head. Hope that they will not walk bare feet anymore. Hope that the diseases and illnesses they have, they will receive care and medical attention so that they get cured and healthy. If these are the good works of charity, shouldn't society put them much higher in the pedestal and expect the general mass and public to cooperate with them, especially those who have lots of haves to work towards the fulfillment of hope and dream of have-nots?
Certainly people should. That's a very simple answer. I think the have and the have-not question is important just to tease out a little bit, because the haves in this question are not people who live in houses worth £1 million, who have huge riches. By comparison with the vast majority of people on earth, those of us who live in Europe have great luxury, great wealth. When you look at people who literally do not know if they can feed their children tomorrow. This is not a question, can I go to the shop and bring the food home, or do I have enough money, but simply they do not know. In many places in the world, if there are no rains or the rains come at the wrong time, next year we will have hunger. In many places, if the rains do not come, then we will not have water to drink, to keep ourselves healthy, and to make our crops grow. So we are seeing a world, not just our own society, which is radically divided between the northern rich half and the southern poor half. Now, what do our faith traditions have to bring to this? Well, we can turn first of all to many sayings from Islam. If we take the word sadaqah, for example, very commonly used, how best do we translate sadaqah? Bearing the burdens of our fellow human beings. It does not say of our fellow Muslims or our fellow Christians. It does not say of those people who belong to the same tribe or race or ethnicity or nationality. The only qualification that is required is that you are human. Therefore, it is my concern. Secondly, you remember the saying of Imam Ali, that every human being is either already your brother in faith or your brother in humanity.
MashaAllah.
The emphasis here is on the word brother, because they have rights, they have demands over us. So it is not that we are generously giving a little something, we are sharing with our family in the human family. We struggle to adequately translate the word zakat, for example, into English, because it's not charity, it's not an alms, it's not a poor tax. Best, I think, is to think of it in this way. I own a house, I have a mortgage on it. I think I own it. Nonsense, I don't at all. The bank owns it.
Yes.
Because I have signed a contract to say the bank has a legal charge on my house.
Yes.
Which means if I don't keep up my payments, they take it from me. Now, they therefore have a right which actually is higher and stronger than my right on my house. This we call a legal charge. This is zakat.
MashaAllah.
You see, from the moment that we have calculated our zakat, it no longer belongs to us. Those who are in need, the poor, the needy, and so on, they have a legal charge over that money.
MashaAllah.
It is theirs. So this is a good way for us to be thinking, because we have a tendency to hoard. Now, all the Islamic teachings about economics, they are against hoarding.
Yeah.
Do not hoard. Make the money circulate. Make it work for the well-being of society. Establish a business. Give people economic dignity. Give them an income. So be involved in helping other people. This is the principle. Now, I ask you this question. If you are drowning and somebody throws you a rope to save you, do you complain what color the rope is? Indeed you won't.
Yes.
So if somebody is in need, should I complain, oh, this is a Muslim charity, I won't take help from them? Or this is a Christian charity, I won't take help from them? Nonsense. We need to see charitable organizations in their humanitarian context. We are sitting here in the city of Birmingham. A short walk from where we are sitting right here is the headquarters of Islamic Relief. I remember well a conversation. I took a bishop to meet the director of Islamic Relief, and he had just returned from Sudan. As you know, Sudan has been Christian-Muslim tension in recent years. And he had been asked by the government then, as it was, of Sudan, the northern part, please will you come and relieve the suffering of our people? Yes, he said, of course we will. There is a condition. And the condition is that we go at the same time and in equal measure to the suffering people of the south of Sudan, to the Christians.
MashaAllah.
Because, he said, we are an Islamic charity, We are not a Muslim mutual welfare society. Very, very important point.
MashaAllah.
That sadaqah means a humanitarian principle going to suffering humanity. Now, it's a good way for us to show our solidarity. Sometimes churches would say, we're thinking of having a collection for, let's say, Kashmir when the earthquake was there, or some place around the world where there is a catastrophe that has struck Muslims. I say this is an excellent idea. May I suggest that when you have collected your money, you take it as a group and give it to an Islamic charity. Because your operation here, the way that you're doing it, is also a great act of solidarity.
MashaAllah.
So that we are demonstrating,
Yeah.
we have confidence and trust in you that you are going to deliver the goods to the people who need it.
MashaAllah. And that is sadaqah. And if you will ask your ulama, your learned scholars, they will tell you, it is written in books that other deeds, all good deeds that we do, Allah makes sure that we are rewarded. If we commit a sin or a guna, Allah asks the farishta to put it down in our ledger that we have committed one wrongdoing. If we think about doing good, we haven't even done it. If we think about doing it, he says to farishta, to the angels, write down that he is thinking of doing good. But the farishta says, the angel says, but he hasn't done it yet. He says, for me, that is enough that he is thinking of the others who are also my makhluf, my creation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, of all the good deeds you do, I will ask the farishta to note it down, and on the day of judgment, you will be blessed for it, rewarded for you. But when we give sadaqah, Allah says to farishta, move on, it is no more your duty to write it down. I will take account of the sadaqah he has given. I will take charge of it. I will note it down in my ledger, and I will personally make sure that he is awarded for it. As Chris correctly said, we are custodians of that. To the younger boys and girls, I can explain, if you go to a garden and you're sitting down there and a beautiful butterfly comes. It comes and sits down on your hand and you say how beautiful that butterfly is. It has got the red of the ruby and the pearl and the diamond, such a beautiful creation of Allah. And you think that God made that butterfly just for you. The moment you try to close your hand that it is mine, it flies and goes and settles on somebody else's hand. The wealth we have and the riches we have of any kind and nature is just like the temporary butterfly. It remains in our hands, in our power, in our grip, in our grasp, as long as he wishes it. The moment he decides that he is not worth it, he takes it away and gives it to somebody else. Let us make sure that Allah's, the wealth that he gives, the riches that he gives, the food and fodder that he provides us, we learn to share. Brothers and sisters, there is great joy, far greater joy in giving and sharing than in accumulating and finding that by tomorrow morning the food has rotten, gone off, and we throw it in the bin. Learn the lessons from the great prophets. Hazrat Isa salam used to go to an orchard where they would put the lepers there, taken out of the society, dumped in the woods, in the lonely place where nobody would go. They might throw some crumbles from there. I haven't read, my knowledge of Bible is very small. Chris will know better, far, far better. I haven't seen Hazrat Isa al-Islam walking down into the palaces and to the big wedding halls and meeting people and sharing food with them. I have read in our own holy books, in our great hadiths and the history of Islam, that he walked about upon the ill, the lepers, and they looked upon him, with hope that there is a prophet of Allah. If he will touch me, Allah will provide him the power of healing. Faith provides us the power of belief that God will heal, that God will take away our hunger, our pain and suffering. Is it not true?
It is indeed true. And we have an important saying in the Christian tradition that God has no hands except your hands.
MashaAllah.
You must do the work of God on earth. And it's even stronger than that, because in one of the teachings of Jesus we have a picture of the Day of Judgment. And in this story of the Day of Judgment, this model which is given, there are people who come and God says to them, you are blessed and you are rewarded with heaven because you fed me, because you clothed me when I was naked, because you visited me when I was in prison. And they say, well, it's very nice of you, but when did we ever meet you in this situation? And the reply is, whenever you did it to one of the least of my creatures, you did it to me.
MashaAllah.
And so the object of our love, serving humanity, is ibadah. It is the worship of God. Because we are the hands of God who bless and strengthen and tend and care for the creatures of God on earth.
Such a beautiful example. And the test of litmus test is something we desperately want to have, and the time comes when we think somebody else might need it more. To give that away at that time is a real test. It is said that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain al-Islam fell ill, and they were quite ill. And our great Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asked his daughter Fatima, salam alaiha, and Ali, take a pledge to Allah, make a niyat that you will fast, keep roza. And once your sons Hassan and Hussain al-Islam are all right, gain health, then you will break your fast. 3 days they fasted. And then the time, each day, when the time to break the fast comes, one day a poor, a needy, one day a ghulam, a slave, one day a prisoner released, they all came to door. When they were about to eat, all they have fasted, and their mother, Fatima Zahra salam, has baked the bread for them. They're about to eat. The sound comes from the door. Is there anybody who will give a needy, a poor, a slave, a released prisoner something to eat? I haven't read that they went out to see what does he look like, how poor he is. They don't. I have read this, that the person asking, there's only one voice, but all 5 of them take their roti, take their bread, they say, we will all give it to him. It is at that time of hunger that we take the food from more or less our mouth and give it to them. That is the example of Ahlul Bayt and their kindness. Today, the world needs us to remember that kindness of the Ahlul Bayt. Today, dams are being built by powerful nations so that the rivers and the oceans and the mountains that Allah created. We are putting barriers there so that we keep the water in our hinterland and deprive it down the stream. They go dry, the agriculture is ruined, whilst we have got abundance there. That water, when it comes from rain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't drop more on the millionaires and the trillionaires and less on the poor. It rains equally and all. Why are we? Who are we to judge them? If we look at the life of Martin Luther King, a preacher from Alabama, perhaps I don't know, from the ghettos of Alabama, where the poor, impoverished African Americans lived, who could not sit in the bus next to a white man because he thinks God has given me superiority of my color. Believe me, as a doctor, when we have opened the abdomen of the white or the black, the Chinese or the Native Americans, they are all the same color. It is our fallacy in our eyes that we see. And if we look at the life of Martin Luther King and Chris's speech about hope, how would you describe his speech, and why does it, the resonance of that speech still lingers in the world community?
You're quite right to say that Martin Luther King is a Baptist minister, steeped in the Christian tradition, steeped in the Bible, the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. And when he speaks using Christian imagery and Christian terms. The extraordinary thing is that when he calls on people to share his dream, that dream is not just responded to by Christians, but by Muslims and by Jews and by secular people, by people without religion, communist people, and so on. So what he is doing is speaking to the heart of human beings. It is not as though some human beings have a gene in them that's a religious gene. No, we are all human beings. The Spirit of God dwells in every human being. We are all enlivened by the Ruh, by the breath of God. So we can, every one of us, respond to human injustice. How can we sit back and allow one human being to be told, you can't sit there, you must go and sit on the hard wooden benches back there? How could we allow, you can use those toilets within the human soul? Now, our faith traditions, our receipt of guidance from God, should be a beacon to the whole of humankind.
Mashallah.
So we should be at the forefront in helping human beings to see that this kind of thing is unacceptable. We have to have, as people of faith, Christians and Muslims perhaps especially, we have to have a degree of humility. Because Martin Luther King was actually struggling against white Christian churches.
Yes.
The people who had brought the slaves from Africa and had kept the slaves in America were Christian church-going people. We have to remember that in South Africa, for example, there were Christian theologies that were developed to support apartheid.
Yes.
These are realities. In the same way, we know that there were Muslim slavers involved in East Africa.
Trade.
taking people from there and enslaving them. These are realities in our history, which first of all we must learn to condemn, and secondly we must seek a kind of collective forgiveness, because if other people bearing our name and our faith identity have acted in a way which is contrary to the very fundamental teachings of that faith, they have actually done harm in the world that will take perhaps generations to eradicate. Is it any wonder that when the descendants of former slaves, African Americans as we call them today, the people of the Caribbean, they found it very hard to gain readmittance to white Christian churches, for example? Because you want me to sit with the people who did this in earlier generations, the descendants of one and the descendants of the other. So we must always remember that our wrong actions do not unfortunately end with our lives.
MashaAllah. With that example there, let me remind our audience that after coming as a victor onto Makkah, entering the city there, what did our Prophet do? He took the hand of a Muhajir and of an Ansar, i.e. the immigrant and the local, and said, each of you are brothers. It is hypocrisy that we condemn one when it benefits us and we condone when it doesn't. When the wall between the Eastern Curtain, the Russian, between the two divided Germany, when the Berlin Wall existed, we cried foul and it must be brought down. And once it was brought down, we hailed as a great victory. Here, I will not involve Chris, but I will say, give you my own view. These very people who were against the Russians, and I was one of them as well, and is that wall should never have been built. That wall must come down, and it did come down. We all clapped. These very people who clapped their hands when Berlin Wall came down are the very people who have not said a word and condoned and helped in many other ways the wall that exists between the Palestinians and the land occupied by the Zionist regime in Palestine. The wall from one end to the other. The wall that divides the orchard of a family in one half here and there. The wall that divides brothers living in one side of the wall from the other. Yet, I call them hypocrites. These politicians of this modern world are a bunch of hypocrites. Where they would clap when the wall comes down, these very politicians, these very nations, these very parties admire the great. We must come to rescue and help and protect Zionism, the country that has enslaved a group of people. What is their fault? Why should they be subjugated behind an artificial wall built by someone who have come from different other parts of the world? Yet nobody talks about the rights of the Palestinians. The very Muslim nation, Egypt, that sits on the other side. These Palestinians on the Gaza Strip built what you call tunnels so that they could get medicine, so that they could get flour to eat. Even last week, the Egyptians blew up those tunnels so that on one side the Israelis build their walls and their tanks, and the other side they blow up the tunnels. These are people entrapped in this piece of land. The human rights organizations, the World Health Organization, everybody knows that they are desperate people But let me tell them, they must have hope. They should have hope and keep their hope alive. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when these Bani Israel, when they were in captivity of the Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, right, they had hope that a Messiah will come, Moses will come, who will take them across the water of Nile to a land, the promised land. Let me know, let me tell you, we too have a hope, we too have a belief that an Imam will come, our Mahdi will come, who will make sure that our hope, our aspiration, those who believe in Allah's justice, in Allah's fairness, in Allah's divine, supreme power and right, that He treats all of us equally, Christians, Muslims, Jews, believers, unbelievers, He treats them all equally. One day that Mahdi will come and he will bring those evil walls of division in society, amongst countries, amongst faith and religion. Inshallah, that day, I hope, is not long. We must all strive to build our hopes in peace, for justice, for fairness of play, and for brotherhood of mankind. Thank you for watching this program. Build your hope and keep your hope alive. Inshallah, see you again, same time next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.